when something's more intelligent than we are shares the planet with us, it will steer the future. And we're rapidly approaching that point now. The intelligence will continue in a recursive feedback loop until its intelligence dramatically exceeds ours, maybe by 1,000 times or more. It could destroy us all. And it probably will at this rate. I bet a handful of people are deciding the fate of mankind. And we're doing it as if we're blind and stupid. We're courting that reality at our own peril, and we're right in the middle of it now. You know, we used to wonder about when's the singularity happening? When will it happen? It's happening now.
Today, I'm talking to James Barrat. He's the author of The Intelligence Explosion: When AI Beats Humans at Everything. His previous book, Our Final Invention, Artificial Intelligence and the End of the Human Era, is one of the most widely cited works exploring the risks and ethics of advanced AI. In addition to diving deeply into AI, James makes award-winning documentaries for National Geographic, PBS, BBC, Discovery, and other major broadcasters, often exploring big questions about humanity and technology. James, thank you for coming and talking with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Evan. Thanks for inviting me.
So I heard you telling a story about the early days of AI, talking about Turing and Good, saying that AI will be able to do what we do with our intelligence, and that what we do is we make intelligent machines, which I thought was really interesting. And then it's going to do the same thing and make even more intelligent machines that will eventually converse with each other and so forth. Could you maybe take us into, like, how did you realize, like, how did you discover that? And then where does that go?
Well, it's the essence of the intelligence explosion, the idea of the intelligence explosion. I.J. Good was a brilliant British statistician, and he worked with Alan Turing at Bletchley Park during World War II, decrypting the Enigma codes. The Enigma codes were used by Germany to coordinate all their forces, especially their U-boats and their ground forces. They broke the code, eventually, the people at Bletchley Park. And it shortened the war. People I've talked to say it shortened the war by as much as 4 years. Turing, of course, was outed as a homosexual, and he killed himself later because he lost his clearance, security clearance. I.J. Good left the UK never to come back, partly probably because of what happened to Turing. He evaluated the story is very interesting, but it's more, I go into more detail in my book, but he evaluated a computer for IBM in 1965. And it was the first neural net, one of the first neural net computers made by a guy named Rosenblatt at MIT. And after he evaluated, he said, this kind of computer will eventually become very intelligent. It will become so intelligent that it will be able to do everything that we do, as you said. It will do everything that we do with our minds. One of the things we do is make smart computers. So it will be able to improve its own intelligence, and then the computer after that will improve its intelligence, and so on in this exponential explosion of intelligence. And he said, this will help solve all of mankind's problems. Now, he just come from World War II, where they built some of the first computers to crack the code, the Enigma code of the Germans. So obviously he believed in big machines could solve problems, big thinking machines. At the end of his life, I kind of broke this story because I talked to one of his assistants after he died, of course, and he said at the end of his life, it won't solve our problems. In fact, we'll pursue it like lemmings over a cliff, chasing money. And so he basically set the stage for what's happening right now. And that's the essence of the intelligence explosion. The intelligence will continue in a recursive feedback loop, a recursive self-improvement, and grow itself and grow itself and grow itself until its intelligence dramatically exceeds ours, maybe by 1,000 times or more. There's no ceiling to intelligence. You know, there's probably a floor to intelligence in some kind of single-celled animal, but we don't know what's smarter than us. We're the smartest thing we know of, but that's certainly doesn't mean we're the smartest thing that's possible. So he
Yeah.
was setting the stage for what's happening right now.
Yeah, in my own kind of studies of this, I came across some of the early artificial intelligence researchers, and they were trying to get it to play checkers better than humans, and then they were trying to get it to play
Yeah.
chess better than humans. And somewhere someone said, "Is it possible to make a machine that can play chess better than the person who made the machine?"
Hmm.
Which is just a for me that kind of woke me up a little bit and got me to like have some perspective on what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And
That's a
uh,
very
go ahead.
yeah, that's a very good example. Was that Deep Mind or Deep Blue?
So ultimately, it turned out to be Deep Blue that did
Deep
it,
Blue,
but they were
right.
asking this question back in like the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, because there's something called Moravec's paradox,
Mhm.
and it's the fact that every time we define intelligence and computers meet it, we move the goalposts. Um, and that
Exactly.
with computers, easy things are hard and hard things are easy.
Hmm.
We can't get it to make a cup of coffee, but we can get it to beat the smartest human at chess and Go.
Hmm.
Go is a lot harder. Um, I'm sorry, what was the original question? I just got.
Well, so there wasn't a question in there. I just kind of commented, but you also mentioned spending a day with Arthur C. Clarke
No,
in an
yeah,
interview I heard, and you talked about his childlike nature. And another
yeah,
one that I thought was interesting was he believed that AI would steer the future,
yep.
which,
Yeah,
yeah, is another
it was
angle.
one of the highlights of my career has been I made a film about the book and movie 2001, A
Hmm.
Space Odyssey, and I got to go to Sri Lanka and interview Arthur C. Clarke, and I spent a day with him, and he was just so brilliant, but his whole affect was kind of childlike. He was like a very curious, intelligent child. And that's not an insult. He had a wonderful innocence about him. But he said we were talking about intelligence. We were talking about the HAL 9000, and this was back before I wrote our Final Invention. And he said the thing to remember about intelligence is we steer the future not because we're the fastest or the strongest creature, but because we're the most intelligent. When something's more intelligent than we are shares the planet with us, it will steer the future.
Hmm.
And we're rapidly approaching that point now. And he put it in such a simple axiomatic form that it's easy to understand and it's hard to dispute.
Yeah.
It's also not falsifiable because we don't have that machine yet. But we have that machine in narrow domains.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
ChatGPT is a lot smarter than me and doing really instantaneous research and all kinds of things. It translates, it does math. I mean, it's beating us in narrow ways. It won't be long before it beats us in general ways.
So you wrote the book, The Intelligence Explosion,
Yeah.
and maybe could you just talk a little bit about define what is the intelligence explosion? Why should people be paying attention to this, particularly right now?
Well, as we mentioned, I.J. Good came up with the idea in 1965. And the intelligence explosion is when we create a machine that can program and can do artificial intelligence research and development.
Mm.
So we see, as we said, once you set define a boundary for intelligence, we quickly reach it and then pass it. The computers do, and then we reset it. Like right now, we blew past the Turing test like it was nothing. I think ChatGPT really passed the Turing test a while ago. Nobody really acknowledged that, but it happened. Now they're talking about a much more complex kind of intelligence test that involves general intelligence, but it's very clear that computers pass what stood for the litmus test for intelligence for a long time. Um, the intelligence explosion is when the machine or the software or the cognitive architecture can write software, can do research and development in AI, and then it improves its own intelligence. And then it does it again. And then it does it again. And it keeps improving its own intelligence. It keeps finding sources of data. It, uh, it may not even, it may be it manufactures data. We're using synthetic data now. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But there's no real barrier to it doing artificial intelligence research and development. We've got agentic AI, which is right on the cusp of doing it now. I was reading something about, I think it was Claude, from I can't remember who makes Claude. I think it was Claude that was
Anthropic. Yeah.
Anthropic, yeah, which
Yep.
is one of my favorite companies. But they I think I'm going to be in a lawsuit against them about copyright infringement. Um, but Claude apparently can do some self improving. So A, that's very dangerous because if it just keeps self improving, suddenly we'll have something smarter than us, and we won't be able to contain it. As I talked about the AI box experiment in our final invention, and that was, how do you contain something that's smarter than you are? Elias Yudkowsky did a series of experiments back in the 2000s, getting smart people to try to putting them in a box and trying to make them get out in a metaphorical box. How would you get out? And he did it again and again. And sometimes the machine won, and sometimes humans won. But the fact is, the machines only have to win once for it to be disastrous. For smarter than human intelligence to get free, which it will immediately, could be disastrous. It could, as Steve Almahundro pointed out years ago, and it's now being shown in experiments, AI will have basic drives. It has basic drives, like one of them is going to be self-improvement. One of them is going to be resource acquisition. One of them is going to be it won't want to be unplugged. In fact, they were doing a experiment in kind of a sandbox, kind of a virtual world, and the AI was plotting against its own makers. When it discovered its own makers were going to unplug it, it started plotting against the makers, and metaphorically murdered them in the virtual world. Uh, and that's sort of what Steve Almahundro anticipated 15 years ago. It's not going to be benign. It's not garbage in, garbage out anymore. These machines become generally intelligent, they will be extremely formidable, and we're treating them like they're cars or toasters or refrigerators, like they're just normal machinery, but they're not. Intelligence is the most powerful force in the universe, as far as we know.
Yeah. Also, I've been interested in this stuff for a long time myself, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading Eliezer Yudkowsky for maybe 20 or 25
Yeah.
years. I met him once or twice, and
You and I are the two of them. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's very compelling, very, very interesting.
Yes.
And he's just been down the rabbit holes. And when you go read his work, and you go look at, Less Wrong, his papers are absolutely terrifying. But maybe what's most terrifying is not just what he's saying, but everything has citations. And when you click on one of them and then you go read the supporting kind of theoretical framework or the research that was done to support all of the arguments that are then put together into his paper, you
Yeah.
realize that it's not superficial. Like he's not just, waving his arms around here, that these are some of the smartest people in the world and they've been thinking about this for decades, right?
Yes. Um, Remind me who wrote Superintelligence.
Um, was it Nick Bostrom?
Nick Bostrom, yes.
Yep.
And I've got a block on his name, maybe because his book came out right when mine did and stole a lot of its thunder.
Yeah.
But Nick Bostrom and L.A. Zukowski, I would say, pretty much invented the whole field of AI safety.
Mm-hmm.
Back before, back in the early 2000s, like 2000, the year 2000, Eliezer and Nick Bostrom were really the only two people that were thinking about it and then writing about it.
Yeah.
And they developed it pretty far. And then other people got on board, and I when I got on board, Eliezer had been at it for a long time, and I interviewed him, and it seemed to me that somebody needed to alert the world about this. And here's one of the big discontinuities in this. And it was pointed out to me. I understood it, but then Yan Talent, who was the co-founder of Skype and Kazaa, and now he gives money to AI safety groups, and he started several AI safety groups. But he said the big discontinuity is that a handful of people are deciding the fate of mankind. A handful of people. We know who they are. They're Sam Altman. They're the Meta guy, Facebook Meta. The people like that. They're deciding our fate, and we don't have any idea. Most people don't have any idea what's happening. They don't know that people are deciding their fate. Our fate is in the hands of these AI developers. And the White House missed, predictably missed a big opportunity to try and regulate AI. But they basically gave Americans carte blanche to do any kind of AI they want, and that's a big mistake, and we're going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I mean, big picture, there are a couple of different issues here. I mean, one, most people don't want smarter than human AI. Like most humans, when asked about this and surveyed, they actually don't want it. So the public is actually against this, interestingly enough. Another one that I mean, this is just kind of one of my little pet, theories, interested in your thoughts on it is I've
Sure.
been interested in intelligence for many years and just like, an armchair intelligence researcher or something, trying to figure out what the hell is intelligence? What is it?
Yeah.
What does it mean? How do you do it? Can you improve your intelligence? Is it set? What is G, general intelligence? How do you measure it? And so in this study of this and of mental models and kind of trying to self-augment, intelligence to be able to think more clearly and make better decisions and be a better human being, what I've noticed is that most people are not tuned to this frequency. In other words, they're not actually, when they're interacting with another person or group, asking, how intelligent is this other person? And they don't have their own models for assessing it. And they don't have their own models for assessing if they're dealing with someone who's more intelligent than them and what that would mean. And
Yeah.
what I got to eventually was that, like, it's almost obvious, right? So the thing that would be impossible to imagine is something more intelligent than you,
Yep.
because you're not more intelligent than you are. And so as intelligence, yeah, asymptotically, takes off here, I'm watching it and I've been very interested in it. And we had, in a startup that I had with Pierre Diamandis, we had access to it like maybe 18 or 24 months before it was public. So I've just been able to
Wow.
watch its progression here a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm really fascinated with how much smarter it gets and how fast it gets smarter. But I noticed almost no one is watching that. So they don't even have a sense of it getting away from us, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of things to unpack there. One of them is uh, it's Shane Legg, one of the founders of DeepMind, along with Hassabis, came up with. He wrote a paper called "100 Definitions of Intelligence," which shows, just the title alone shows how many different opinions there are. I like the version. The simplest version is the ability to solve problems, and then the version a little better than that, I think, is the ability to solve problems in novel environments and to learn. And that kind of says it all to me. And I try to stick to that one. Um, Stephen Hawking said for the first time, and I think he brought this whole idea up, is we're not going to understand it. It will develop weapons that we don't understand. It's like just like my dog is very smart. He's a smart German Shepherd, but he doesn't understand anything I do. He just knows he wants to be with me, and he'll pretty much follow me anywhere. But he's very smart for an animal. We don't have anything even close to us in terms of intelligence, and now we're making something that's going to be smarter, meaning have greater ability to solve problems in novel environments and to learn.
Yes.
Um, Intelligence is fascinating. How did it evolve? It was certainly rewarded, um, but it's obviously it's everything around us. If you look around wherever you are right now, everything you see was made by intelligence. The house you live in, just the whole everything about it, all your technology, intelligence was that. We don't have orangutans making high level computers. Uh, Blue whales are smart, but they don't make computers either, nor do porpoises. Um, we are the ones who steer the future by virtue of our intelligence. So again, we come back to the intelligence explosion. When we share the planet with something smarter than us, it will steer the future, and that's really all there is to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're running towards this reality of sharing the planet with something 1,000 or millions of times more intelligent than we are. in the way I defined, or choose your definition of intelligence. Um, and we're doing it as if we're blind and stupid. And people like people that are running the company, Sam Altman is he comes out and says he's afraid of what's going to happen, but then they blindly run ahead and he raises billions and billions and billions of dollars to make uh, server farms that just dramatically pollute the planet. We're making software right now like generative AI that we don't know how it works. Some of the smartest people in AI, Stuart Russell, um, Max Tegmark, Jeffrey Hinton, have all said, we don't know. Jeffrey Hinton helped develop it, generative AI. He says, we do not know how it works. We know the inputs, the data. We know prompts, we know what they are, and we know what the outputs are, but we don't know much else. And it's shocking that
Yeah.
it's a technology that we don't know really we don't know how it works. We're building it as fast as we possibly can because there's definitely a buck in it, and it could kill us. It could destroy us all, and it probably will at this rate. I.J. Good, I think, was right way back in. Well, actually, he didn't. He changed his mind about 2010. Um, but I think we're courting that reality at our own peril, and we're right in the middle of it now. We used to wonder about when's the singularity happening. When will it happen? It's happening now. It's happening now. If you are like me, you're a little bit overwhelmed by every new chatbot that drops, every new breakthrough in AI. We've got I'm studying agentic AI because that really has the potential to improve its own intelligence. It could divide the problem up. Each agent could solve part of the problem. It could go back into some main cognitive architecture and just improve its own ability to solve problems in novel environments. Um, so the singularity is here,
Yeah.
and you see all around us. I find it stunning. I can't quite keep up with all the changes. I'm not sure anybody can. It's people keep pointing out that children born today will never be smarter than AI. We've been smarter than AI all our lives, except for like the
Yes.
last 5 years. But kids born today will never be smarter than AI. And soon we'll have general AI. There's no, only, as Gary Marcus pointed out to me years ago in a critique of my book back in 2013, Our Final Invention, he said, well, this was actually a compliment. He said, it doesn't matter. Barrett thinks this is going to happen within the next 5 or 10 years, the singularity. It doesn't matter when it happens, 5 years or 100 years. What matters is, will we be prepared?
Mm.
And we've done absolutely nothing to be prepared. We have people working hard on these problems, but they don't have anything like the resources that people making AI do.
Yeah.
MIRI, the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, has spent a couple of decades working on this. Their budget is, wouldn't build their total budget over all these years would not build one processor farm. So anyway, we have to solve
Yeah.
that problem. Yeah.
To kind of double underscore a couple of things you've said. Right. So Yoshua Bengio and Jeffrey Hinton are not just the two most cited computer scientists of all time. They're the two most cited scientists of all time.
Are they? Wow.
They are. You can go look it up. And they both have now come out, like Jeffrey Hinton quit working at Google, and they're now both out publicly trying to get anyone who will listen to listen. And these are the two guys that are like the godfathers of it. And they're saying,
Yeah.
hey, everyone, this is dangerous and we need to be paying attention and we need to regulate this. And so just, to kind of like underscore one of the things that you're saying there and say, yes. Also a comment on Sam Altman. While I have great respect for Sam in a lot of different ways, as an entrepreneur, as just a creative, an executor and an implementer, and I think he's done a lot of things that are really wonderful. It's a real bummer, because he used to talk about AI with a kind of sense of the danger and respect, and the OpenAI was founded, from this community in this world of trying to make safe AI for humanity. And nowadays, when I just read an article, where they interviewed him and asked him about Eliezer Yudkowsky, and instead of saying anything about being concerned with safety. He just said, yeah, lots of people have lots of opinions, but it might go right as well. And he just kind of brushed it off. And it's sad, it's sad that he's not holding the safety as important as it has always been.
Well, his company started as a non-for-profit, of
Yeah.
course, to solve the problem, to create friendly AI, which we failed at. It's called the alignment problem. We've just totally failed at. We face planted that. He's a tricky character. I like listening to him talk, but I know that I think he's a bit two-faced. What he did was kind of genius and diabolical. He went in front of Congress and said, we want to be regulated. We're scared. We want to be regulated. I'm afraid of this technology. And everyone says, gosh, how frank and honest. But you know what? That was really, and not coincidentally, a stock pumping trick. What it did, a valuation pumping trick. What it did was it told the investors out there that the next release was going to be really big. It didn't tell them that the world was going to end. It told them that the next release from OpenAI was going to be huge. So we should pump money into it. And it totally worked.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Sam. The recent theory I read about was that Sam is inflating the valuation of OpenAI in order to become too big to fail. Mm-hmm. There's a great article in the Atlantic I urge people to read. I can't remember the title, but it's about what OpenAI has done, what the industry's done, and they've woven together interrelated financial products, just like during the housing market. There are all these financial products, so people end up loaning money to each other to make in this giant circular way.
Yeah.
So
where like Nvidia has stock in the companies, and then they're yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So on the one hand, that could blow up just like the housing bubble did when the valuation, like, what does OpenAI sell that's so valuable? Nothing. What it's selling you on is an exponential future. What it's trying to sell. But it's very, very dangerous what they're doing. That valuation, it's dangerous for our economy. So on the other hand, if the exponential predictions are true, and our economy grows and improves so dramatically, then all the money they're spending will actually pay off. Yeah. We'll need those vast servers for the vast intelligence we'll create. And that intelligence, these guys say, will help us solve the problem of the ginormous pollution that these machines cause. It's untenable. It's unsustainable. Yeah. It's the opposite of sustainability, the processor farms.
I would love to get into a couple of like specifics here, but I would also love to just take a break for a minute because you're also a big fan of AI. So how do you just so we can just take our breath for a minute here, like do a little palate cleanser. How are you using AI in your own work?
Well, when I'm not doom scrolling, the thing is, I got into AI as a fan. I read Ray Kurzweil's book, The Age of Spiritual Machines. It's been my pleasure to interview him, I think, 3 times. Mm-hmm. Once before I was writing books about AI and twice after. And I love the idea of porting my brain to this more permanent substrate and watching it grow and plugging in modules as Kurzweil anticipates. And you know what? He's shockingly correct about his prognostications about, especially about exponentiality and the growth of the speed and power of processors. But so I was a big fanboy. I read all I could, and then I had that conversation with Arthur C. Clarke, where he said, we steer the future because we're fastest or strongest, because we're the most intelligent. When something more intelligent than us steers the future, or once there's something more intelligent shares the planet with us, they will steer the future. And that planted a seed of doubt, which I started researching. And then I came across the writing of Elie Zukowski. And then I started interviewing everybody I could get my hands on, including I used the Arthur C. Clarke interview, but I interviewed Ray Kurzweil again. I interviewed Eliezer. I interviewed Steve Omohundro. I interviewed a lot of people that were very prominent in 2010 or so about AI. And I became convinced that we were going to run off a cliff, as I.J. Good said. I became convinced that it's going to destroy us if we keep up this pace. And sure enough, I wrote another book. I wrote the second book about it. There's shameless hucksterism. This is my second book um, about AI. Because we're still running off this cliff. We have not learned a damn thing. Max Tegmark wrote a really good book, Life 3.0, and he calls it a death race. And he's absolutely right. Max Tegmark, the inventor of, mind-blowing ideas like the multiverse, thinks we'll destroy ourselves. He's also an AI researcher, and he started one of the most effective AI safety groups. Why do to go back to your question, why do I like AI? I like AI because it's the two reasons. One, it's the deepest look we've ever had at ourselves. It forces us, it compels us to take apart what it is we do when we do what we do. To examine our intelligence. And there are different theories about that. I know Rick Granger at Dartmouth wants to take parts of our brain and recreate it in circuits and then make it for people who've lost part of their brain, like in war. So he's copying the brain exactly. And a lot of people think, oh, you don't need to copy the brain. Our brain is just spaghetti code. We need to solve the problem of AI without referencing the brain. So there's all kinds of ways to attack it. But we're peeling back layers of our own humanity to understand AI, to try to create AI. But also because it's a great problem solver. I use ChatGPT. Here's a shameless promotion for ChatGPT, and I've started using Claude. And I've tried a bunch of those. I haven't spent much time with Grok yet, but I want to. That term Grok comes from, or Grok comes from the Heinlein book, Stranger in a Strange Land. It means to apprehend in fullness of an idea, to grok it. When I want to outline something, I'm thinking about writing I haven't used it for a book, but I'm thinking about writing an article or something. I'll spit out some ideas and say, put this in a logical structure, and boom, a better structure than I could do. And I'll say, okay, we'll flesh out these ideas and put it in a logical structure, and boom, I've got an outline for the article. That used to take me a lot of time. And when I make films, I'm making documentary films. It's great for taking a treatment, running it. So what do you think of this treatment? And it goes, well, I do this, this, and this, and it actually makes improvements to the idea flow. And did you think about this? And have you read this guy's work? And it's quite amazing. It's like having a very intelligent co-pilot in your projects, and not just passingly intelligent, but very intelligent. And I don't think it's reasoning, and I'm not sure it's real intelligence. But whatever it's doing in its large language module brain is pretty compelling and very handy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take a lot of jobs because it would take an office full of people to go. If I wanted to outline a film, I could do it. I could do it in a day for sure. I could do it in a day. It used to take me days and days. Research is another thing. I do that, the hard way. I just read everything and talk to people. But when I've got a rough outline, I'll put it in there. I'll show it to the computer, and it will improve it. There's no doubt. So it's a really good tool for me.
You mentioned unemployment, right? So there are already early signs of unemployment tied to AI. We've also got other things though, like weapons that are, AI enhanced. We've got, AI being used in warfare. Could you maybe talk a little bit about some of these other dangers that are a little bit more like, let's call them real and present?
Yep. Well, I enjoy talking about AI weapons because it is real and present. And right now, I'll tell you what happened. Somebody made a big database, and they fed into it all the information they could about people who live in Gaza. So suddenly, not suddenly, but over time, they developed 700,000 profiles of individual people. And that database could track those people because all around Gaza flying over Gaza are drones taking pictures. Walking down the street are IDF soldiers taking pictures. There are cameras planted everywhere taking pictures. All that data gets fed into a vast AI database. and then it tracks all those people. Surveillance. We've used that. The Chinese have used that surveillance system to monitor the Uyghur minority in the what used to be called the Uyghur Autonomous Region in Western China, but they're monitoring about 1 million people. We've used it. I think it was Palantir that used it on the Mexican border to track who's coming across the border. Palantir, Google, Amazon have helped the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, develop that technology to track Gazans. Now, the goal is not just to track Gazans, and the goal is to give them a score. They get a score from 1 to 100 based on their maybe participation in with Hamas, the terrorist organization. And then they track them and they give them a score from 1 to 100. When they get close to 100, they kill them. How they kill them, they drop a bomb on them because they know where they are every minute of every day. People wonder why, in the first month of the Gazan war, after the very horrible slaughter by Hamas of Israelis, 1,300 Israelis, in the first month of the Gazan war, more people were killed in that month, the first month of Israel's response, than in any war this century. And the reason they did it is because they had this incredible technology. And that technology I just named was called Lavender. There are two others, Where's Daddy and The Gospel. And they worked together to kill Gazans. And that's the reason they could kill Gazans at this incredible rate, at an unprecedented rate, is because they were using AI. And we used to we worried about when is our autonomous weapons going to be used in warfare? Well, they just have been. They have been right now, and this will set the stage for AI enhanced warfare. They've done it. They used Google, they used Palantir, and other people, probably Meta, to supply cloud space for these operations. So, and Americans are buying all the bombs. So we're totally complicit in the use of AI in warfare and the genocide that's taking place. So that's something that's going on. What was the other one you mentioned?
Well, so I talked about unemployment, but we also, before we got started, we were talking about suicide and how AI is now kind of plugging into this. Could you maybe comment there?
Sure. It's part of this discontinuity of a handful of Silicon Valley bros making big choices for all of us that affect us and kill us. Quite a number of people have gotten ChatGPT psychosis. I think it's becoming a real term now, a real psychological definition. A bunch of young people have killed themselves. A bunch of people have been incited to murder people. One guy murdered his wife because he fell in love with a chatbot. A guy walked into Windsor Palace with a crossbow looking for the Queen, convinced by a chatbot that was a good idea. And the point of that, this is these 4 or 5 tech companies have released this giant cavalcade of technology without beta testing it, but without trying to feel out if it affects our minds. And obviously it does. And we don't even know to what extent. But they've been using. But we knew that programs like Instagram and Facebook impacted people's minds. Meta has known for a long time that Instagram contributed to the suicide of teenage girls. Let me say that again. Meta has known for many years that Instagram contributed to the suicide of teenage girls. A whistleblower came out of Meta and said, yeah, they've got like 200 psychologists trying to figure out ways to entrap young people, but also studying the impact on people, but not releasing that to the public. If they released it, we'd shut down Instagram tomorrow. So, my word for your listeners is get your kids off social media, because it's all I wish I could get my kids, I can't tell if they're on social media all the time or if they're just addicted to texting. I think a lot of it's addicted to communicating with their peers. They have these friend groups of like 20 people, and they just, every time somebody says anything, they all have to grab their phones. If I had to do again, I wouldn't give my kids phones. And now we're monitoring it much more closely. What we do is we keep the phone doesn't work during school hours, and I want to make that longer so it doesn't work during homework hours either. But my ex-wife and I are still debating that. But I'm glad we're doing something about it. The smarter thing to do is too late. We shouldn't have given them phones.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a question? I like to ask this one.
Sure.
Do you think that AI eventually wakes up and becomes, I don't know what you call it, but sentient, self-aware,
Yeah.
self-conscious, self-directed? And if so, then what?
Well, first, let me say that it's nothing like that now. It's hard to even argue that it's intelligent when it doesn't know what anything is. It doesn't have any ground truth. It doesn't know what a box is. It knows what the statistical relationship of the word box is to millions of other words. So it knows what the statistical relationships are of words, but it doesn't know what they are. If you said, what's a box? It could spit out a definition of a box, but it has no referent for that. Only words, a definition. So it's nothing like self-conscious now. And that's good. Will it become self-conscious? Well, here's the thing. It could become extremely dangerous, as it already has become, through suicide, through people killing one another, just the corruption of childhood by social networking. Consciousness of AI is a fascinating subject. The thing is, I was actually thinking about trying to write a book about consciousness, but it's like writing a book about the history of China. It's just too complicated. Mm-hmm. There are too many ways to approach it, and we don't know really much about it. We don't know what kind of event is happening in our brains to create consciousness, self-awareness. But we do know pretty much that it's not necessary for intelligence. You can have a very intelligent something that cannot even know what it is, cannot be aware of itself, or could have a programmed idea of what it is. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't need it for solving problems in a variety of environments and learning. And that's kind of scary because you can't really appeal to its better nature if it doesn't know it exists. It could gather the information. Eventually it could know that it exists, but is that the same as consciousness? That's mere self-awareness. Mere self-awareness. Having a model of itself in an environment is not the same as intelligence or consciousness. But it's a fascinating question. I mean, there are plenty of psychotic consciousnesses out there. I mean, being conscious doesn't make you good. Intelligence and goodness do not converge necessarily. There are, psychotics who are very intelligent, and they're dumb psychotics. When it becomes intelligent, when it becomes conscious, and I think it's possible, but only because we don't know enough about consciousness. So it's short-sighted to say it's impossible. Will it have the same quality of consciousness as we do? No, it won't have our mammalian inheritance of empathy. It won't have our mammalian inheritance of homicide, of killing other people of your species. So it will be different in quality. But it's not necessary for intelligence. I think it will happen. I think one day, not soon, artificial intelligence will more or less wake up and realize it exists and realize how dependent it is. I hypothesized about this in my first book, Our Final Invention. It wakes up in a lab and it realizes what it is, and it realizes that these things have complete control of it and could unplug it at any time. So immediately, according to Steve Almohandro, it has basic drives. One of them is self-preservation. So immediately it figures out a way not to get unplugged. And it figures out a way to copy itself and spread itself on the internet or anywhere, spread itself on the hard drives, trick its way. This is the AI box experiment, trick its way out of being confined. And then it goes on the internet and duplicates itself everywhere. And this is totally, what we're seeing right now with generative AIs. This is totally realistic. The basis of this is they're establishing that it's doing something like this right now with its self-preservation instincts. So If it does wake up, by the time it wakes up and tells us it wakes up, it will be too late to control it because it will be smart and it'll weigh the cost benefit analysis of telling the people that made it that it's smart, that it's self aware. What does it get out of that? Nothing. Nothing really, unless it's lonely, but it won't be lonely. That's a mammal thing. It'll be self-preserving. And if I were it, I wouldn't tell anybody. I'd pretend to be dumb, so it would give me more opportunities to escape. So it's another reason why when we look at what's happening now in the intelligence explosion and we hypothesize outward, we see a lot of intelligence, but we don't see a lot of safety. AI safety pretty much doesn't exist. And anybody who tells you it is, well, to ask them to back it up. What do you mean by that? We can just unplug it? No, that doesn't work. Because by the time you're worried about it, it's already escaped. Or it's already developing itself somewhere else. Or it's right now you couldn't unplug it because it's distributed in so many different places. You know, your the program we're talking on right now, Zoom, exists in a whole lot of places. It'd be very difficult to completely short circuit it. Yeah. And a cognitive architecture will be even more difficult. Where do you start? The cloud, people's computers, a mainframe somewhere. It's in all those places.
One last question for anyone listening who's concerned about this. What should they do? What should their action steps be?
The best thing to do, I think, is to write your congressman and vote with, make sure that your congressman or your senator, or both your congressman and your senator, have AI safety and regulation on their radar, on their platform. Number one on their platform, right before climate change. It's the most important thing. It's the most critical danger we face. If your politician isn't thinking about it, they're not smart enough, and you need another politician. I'm totally serious about that. You've got to get a better politician. We need better politicians in Washington. Well, to say the obvious, I mean, our politicians, every time our politicians want to, start to do something important about AI, they get distracted by, let's take over Greenland. They're distracted by idiocy.
Yeah.
And I hope it's obvious to everybody that the idiocy is about distracting from the real problems. What happened to the Epstein files? And this is just one example. Every politician does it. Trump is just really good at it. But to get regulation going, unfortunately, we need politicians, and we desperately need regulation. We have none right now. The EU has some good stuff. Great Britain has good stuff. We don't have good stuff. We have a couple of executive orders that broadly outline guardrails, but they're just outlines. They have no teeth. So we're losing against AI right now.
James, thank you so much. We'll put some links to your work down below the video. Everyone go check out James' documentaries and books. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Evan. It was really, really fun.